This is probably one of the worst portrayal of Mary the First of England, and it is in the Elizabeth movie from 1998. But this scene, I think there's lots to unpack and lots to discuss, so let's watch it. It's when Elizabeth has an audience with Mary the First, and she had been imprisoned. So let's just talk about it. I'll give you a bit of the historical context around that scene.
Come here. Closer, so I might see your face. When I look at you, I see nothing of the king. Only that whore, your mother.
So first of all, what's very interesting is that, yes, Elizabeth was imprisoned on the order of Mary, and she was sent to the Tower. And that was something that was highly traumatic for Elizabeth. It's something that really shaped her, I think shaped the way she was going to become queen later on and the way she viewed power. What's so interesting though is that she sent a letter to Mary, her sister, and she asked for an audience, and she crossed everything at the end so to make sure that no one would add anything to her letter, which is a very smart move, a very smart thing to do, and shows that how politically and diplomatically astute she was. Now, what's also very interesting is that years before, they had this sort of agreement that if anything happened, if anyone tried to, pit them against one another, they would grant each other the possibility to talk and to have an audience. And it's why Mary the First actually agreed to have an audience with Elizabeth. And obviously in that letter, she reminded her of that promise that they made to each other. And she signed, obviously, your humble and obedient, servant. She is playing the card that she's a subject. And what's so very interesting in that letter is that obviously she's writing to her sister, but more importantly, she's writing as a subject. And here, why is it so important? Is because Elizabeth is playing with the rhetoric that her sister Mary the First was playing when she said in her speech at Garhol that she was the mother of her country, mother of the people of her country. And Elizabeth is reminding her that though they are sister, yes, but she's also this spiritual or political mother, and that in that sense she also owes her an audience because she has to defend herself against the accusations that have been made against her. Again, it's so politically astute from Elizabeth I.
My father never did anything so well as to cut off her head.
So here we have Mary making such accusations and such crazy kind of comments about, the mother Anne Boleyn. Would she have done that? No. Here we're just going into this idea of the myth of Mary the First being such a bad queen, being such a bad sister, being so horrific, so mean, for absolutely no reasons. No, I do not believe that Mary the First would have received Elizabeth and said all these things about her mother. I think we tend to forget that despite their differences, despite the fact that she sent Elizabeth to the Tower of London, despite that she made her a prisoner in Hatfield after that, Mary never agreed to execute her sister. But more importantly, she was always you have to remember that all her political advisors were telling her to execute her sister, that her sister was a threat to her throne, was a threat to her crown, was a threat to her life. But Mary always fought this in many ways, and we tend to forget that during their years, when Elizabeth was growing up without a mother, Mary and Elizabeth did form some sort of a relationship. I do believe that they had some affection for each other, mostly because they bonded over the fact that their father was a horrible, horrible man and was not a great father to either of them. So no, I really don't like the start of the scene where she's like, oh, your mother, the only good thing that her father did was to cut off her head. I don't think she would have said anything that horrible to her sister.
Your Majesty forgets he was also my father.
He was also my father. Here, talking about the bond that I'm discussing, the bond that the fact that these two women were actually sisters, well, half sisters, but they were bonded through their fathers. And here, like, you see that Mary is like, you know, kind of, yeah, you know.
Why do you not confess your crimes against me?
Because, Your Majesty, I have committed none.
You speak with such sincerity. I see you are still a consummate actress.
Obviously, Mary had lots of doubts when it came to Elizabeth. But I think she believed in her sincerity. I think she believed that Elizabeth was not plotting against Mary. Now, what's also true is that people who were plotting against Mary to change the regime were, in a way, partisans of Elizabeth, thinking that she should be queen and that she should replace her sister. So in a way, you know, when the councillors were saying that Elizabeth was a threat to Mary, they were not completely wrong. But Elizabeth herself I do not believe that she wanted to be a threat to her sister. She never really participated in everything like that. She never wanted to overthrow her sister. And here, what I like is that kind of humanity. Well, we show her as a crazy, mad woman, which I really dislike. But at the same time, it's so well done in terms of like being so conflicted. Though they made her completely mad, and I really don't like it.
My husband is gone. They have poisoned my child.
Okay, we're here like just completely crazy. My husband is gone. Poisoned my child. She's never had a child. Like we just want this kind of narrative around Mary that she's so unfit to rule, and I really dislike this in that movie.
Say it is a tumour.
Losing her mind.
Madam, you are not well.
They say this cancer will make you queen, but they are wrong. Look there. It is your death warrant. All I need do is sign it.
Mary, if you sign that paper, you will be murdering your own sister.
Okay, so here we're talking about the death warrant. I don't think she would have also thrown away. Oh, yeah, that's your death warrant. I just have to sign it. That is utterly ridiculous. But they must have discussed it. Like, how close she would get of getting executed. Because let's not forget that Mary I did sign the death warrant of her cousin, Lady Jane Grey. It's a total different story. It's a total, like, she fought so much against it. It was such something that really was so hard for Mary to do. But here Elizabeth is very much so, like, trying so hard to remind her you would be executing your own sister. So here really to show her, like, the link and the bond they have. And she would not have done this, and if they had not developed that relationship and that, you know, sister relationship. And here you see with Mary, like, her face, she does agree. She does realize what it would mean.
You will promise me something? When I am gone, you will do everything in your power to uphold the Catholic faith. Do not take away from the people the consolations of the Blessed Virgin, their Holy Mother.
So here again, she's this crazy mad woman, but what I like though is, like, we show how important Catholic religion was for Mary I, and that is true. And she would have pretty liked Elizabeth to continue this, and here we make that Elizabeth would have said something else.
When I am queen, I promise to act as my conscience dictates. Do not think to be queen at all. You may return to your own house at Hatfield, but you will remain there under arrest until I am recovered.
So here, she is sent to Hatfield instead of being in the Tower of London. But here, I really don't like that scene. I really don't like the fact that Elizabeth is, like, saying, you know, I would do as my conscience dictate. I don't think she would have dared saying something like that when she knew where she was, when she knew that she was at the Tower of London. She was completely at the mercy of Mary. And also, let's not forget that Elizabeth is, you know, what she's going to try to do is to kind of find a via media. So she doesn't, you know, in many ways, she still wants to have some part of the Catholic faith that plays a role in England when she became queen. Things are going to change during her reign for different reasons, for political and diplomatic reasons. But I just think that this scene is just so wrong, because you have the, like, she looks at Mary, looks like a maniac. Elizabeth looks that kind of, you know, when I am queen. I don't think she would have said things like that, because how much do we know that Mary was not going to rule for a bit longer or have a child eventually? Who knows? Like, I mean, it was such a very bold thing to say about her becoming queen. Overall, I just think that this scene lacks the real dynamic between Mary the First and Elizabeth. It lacks the fact that a better portrayal of Mary to make it completely compelling. And I would love to see a movie about the two sisters, really, and the complex relationship and the fact that they suffered at the hands of the same father in different ways, but they did suffer. And the fact that their relationship is so much more complex than we want to see in that movie, that we want to portray in that movie. That Mary the First is not that crazy lady who was so unfit to rule, and that Elizabeth was not that perfect, you know, just would always say the right thing. It's much more complex and much more interesting in so many ways. Let me know what you think of this portrayal of Mary the First and of Elizabeth the First. Well, Elizabeth when she was a princess. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!